Hello? Are we on yet?
No, I'm on.
Oh, I'm sorry. We haven't started yet, guys. We'll get
Oh,
there as soon
oh,
as we get a quorum. Thank you.
okay.
Hello?
Hello? Hello? Hello, we're gonna start the proceedings shortly. We're waiting for our last board member to show, and we'll have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we're gonna call the meeting to order then?
I think we need to wait till he's on.
Oh, I'm sorry, he's not on. We're going to call the meeting to order. We're going to begin with the preamble first.
Thanks, everybody, for your patience. We will be moving quickly through the agenda today, as I know Commission Chair Fluker does need to leave shortly before 11. So in compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Recusals from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. Next slide. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. We've also received emails from those who have provided written comments on a particular matter. Proper channels for comments are listed below. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the Wednesday 12 p.m. deadline are collected by City Planning staff and disseminated to the Commission members prior to any scheduled meeting. Proper channels for public comments include sending an email to the cityplanning@clevelandohio.gov address with a comment or letter, calling and or leaving a message at 216-664-2210, sending a letter or dropping off comments at City Hall, 601 Lakeside Avenue. For those who are new to Planning Commission, I'd like to walk through the meeting rules and procedures so we all are on the same page. The chair, Mr. Fluker, will call each agenda item, and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through the presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation has concluded, the chair will ask planning staff to summarize design review committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comments is noon on the Wednesday prior to any regularly scheduled City Planning Commission meeting and will be read into the record. Any comments received by the deadline are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting through Dropbox. Staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff if applicable. The commission will then begin deliberations of the project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called. Mr. Chair?
All right, thank you. Before we proceed, we'd like to handle the first matter of business, which is the approval of the meeting minutes from last week's
Mr. Chair, point of order, we do need to do roll call first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Michael, please.
Anthony. Fluker.
Present.
Curry. McCray Scott.
Present.
Sargent.
Present.
Slight.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll try and stay focused. I apologize. The first order of business is to approve the last meeting's meeting minutes. Have you guys had a chance to review? We have a copy. If not,
Mr. Chair, just to note, I will abstain because I missed last meeting.
okay.
Hopefully no one else did and we can.
May we entertain a motion?
Yes, sure. Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that the minutes from the last meeting be approved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Fluker.
Yes.
McCray Scott.
Yes.
Sargent.
Yes.
Slight.
Abstain.
Motion carries. We're gonna proceed with the design review docket. Just one quick, maybe 2 lines of order of business. I ask that our planning commission be clear about why we're approving, whether we agree with the design reviews comments and provide the reason for that, so that we can get that recorded in the minutes. On the first docket, Far West Design Review, FW 2023-020 Warren Road Apartment, new construction. They're here for seeking conceptual approval. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Good morning. This is Brandon Young from Young Design Studio. I'm present.
So who are you going to present and talk? I need to swear you in.
Presenting will be Anthony Fiorini.
Are you going to make any comments, any other than Anthony? If not, or if so, I'm going to swear you guys in. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth for this matter now in hearing, as you shall answer to God or under the penalty of perjury? Could you identify by saying I do?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed. And as you make your presentation, if you can refer back to any comments that were made in design review so that we can address those issues as we proceed. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Everyone, my name is Anthony with Maverick Building Co. Excited to present this project. We had some good feedback from the design review meeting. If you want to go to the next screen, go to the one right after. So overall, this project is consisting of 19 townhomes between 3 units and the 1 4-unit on the south. Some of the great design comments that we had on the overall site plan that we had adjusted with our the landscape architect was re-envisioning how this street is going to be coming in from Warren Road. The biggest change was removing the sidewalk to create this more canopy space to allow the trees to grow a little bit better than what was on this initial plan. So the sidewalk was going to be closer to the street, shrinking that the private drive, but having more space for walking and then more greenery for the trees to be able to grow. Outside of that, some additional comments were this plan doesn't necessarily show all of the trees and landscape that we're doing. We did add a bit of a walking path on the west side of the property and adjusted the trash location, which would be at the right of that retention area as well. There will be some privacy fences on the south and the west side just to keep a little bit more privacy on it. Overall on the site plan, that was the main changes. If we want to shoot over to the next page. So the initial concept from the exterior is going to remain similar to this. Some of the comments that the design review committee had come up with was on that first gable, the bump out where the garage is at, increasing the brick to make it more fit into the neighborhood. In addition to the overall design concept, changing it from just a bright white to more of an off-white to fit some of the neighborhood housing and surrounding streets. There were some other changes that we were going to make with the window colors but overall changing it from more of a extremely modern to fitting in with more of some of the adjacent streets. The overall layout of the unit itself, they consist of 5 3-units, unit buildings, and then 1 4-unit. A and B unit types. On unit A unit type, we'll have 12 total units with about 2,075 square feet, 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bath. The unit B would be 7 units of the 19, 2,279 square feet with 4 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. We did add a bedroom on the first floor that will be different from what this plan calls for, just to get that additional bedroom space in there on the layout. The lot overall is 1.5 acres with 54 feet of frontage, so allowing that nice overall drive through the neighborhood to give it that community feel and love to open up to questions.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate that. Staff, any staff comments?
In addition to the design review comments, I'll just read them aloud so that we can, listeners online can hear. I need to evaluate the effectiveness of the sidewalk within the dimensions of the driveway to the street and balance that with the appropriate area needs for landscaping and tree pits. Rear elevation impact to neighbors should be considered. Consider more brick and different shades of white to relate more to West Park character, and reevaluate retention pond size for incorporation of walking path. Overall, this is a project coming before you for conceptual review. It is a multifamily proposal and a 2-family. However, because it's set back so far off the street, it's just worth considering. It's almost like a little private development on the interior. I did want to note for the record that we did receive an email from West Park Cam's neighborhood development to state the support for the conceptual approval. This project represents the first new market rate housing project in West Park Cams in years, and the townhouse style will add diversity of housing options available in our neighborhood.
Thanks, Director Wong. Just for our edification, could we go back to the site plan as we entertain any comments or questions from the Planning Commission?
I'll say, Ward 17, I live right around the corner. And there is existing housing on the site. It's kind of like 3 separate small buildings. It's somewhat unique when you come back there. And the owner has been interested in doing something for some time. And there's been a couple stops and starts, a couple of ideas. So I'm interested in your feedback. And then really planning to continue to have more robust conversations with the neighborhood, especially the affected neighbors. But also, I think there's a lot of just interest in the site from people that live somewhat a little further flung than you can see in this aerial. As the Development Corporation noted, we hear a lot from people that they're looking for a more modern housing product in the neighborhood. Anecdotally, I hear from Fairview Hospital that the residents of the hospital want to be in the neighborhood, but there's just not a lot of supply. So working with the Development Corporation, we're trying to find opportunities to, create some housing opportunities on the main corridors, in places where it can work. The housing market in this area is really on fire right now. So I think that the market can certainly bear the product. But I have been just interested in your feedback and your thoughts. So.
Any other comments or questions?
I share design review's concern about the tree pits. From the render that was provided, those kind of triangle tree pit areas where single trees have been planted adjacent to driveways. I doubt those trees will really survive in that condition. So I would probably agree with the approval of conceptual design based on trying to understand those conditions. And hopefully, I think that double tree lawn right there, right there on the right side of the picture seems like a more optimal condition. If we can find ways to make that happen along the street, as opposed to that isolated tree, that'd be great.
Okay, well, I have a couple observations and comments. I know we're at conceptual, and I like the way they created parking towards the back of the lot, because there's not going to be really any opportunity to park on the street because of all the drives. That leads to my first inquiry. This is a dead end cul-de-sac. I know we don't like that word, but it's a dead end, and the fire department necessarily don't like dead ends. So it looks like there's a hammerhead at the end where hopefully there's enough turning radius or radii to allow a truck to pull in, then pull all the way down, make a turn, make a 3-point turn and turn out. That island might prohibit that, to be totally honest.
To the chair's point and to the applicant, through the chair, it's going to be important to visit PETBOT, which is our Traffic Engineering Bureau of Traffic and Planning body, which also includes fire, as they'll be able to give you feedback as you progress through plans should it be conceptually approved. And anything 150 feet in has to have a turnaround ability just to keep residents safe and allow for fire trucks to come in. So
thank you.
Thank you.
The other observation really piggybacks on Mr. Drew's comments about, Mr. Sargent's comments about the pits or the landscaping. given the fact that people are gonna have to bring trash out, I think there needs to be some sort of consideration to accommodate that. And maybe that's an opportunity. Maybe there are a combination of landscaping and paved area that will accommodate someone going out to a designated area, and so that trash cans aren't sitting in the street or they're sitting in the middle of driveways. So that, I think there needs to be a little more intentionality to deal with some of the realities of living in dense urban environments. And the other question I do have is concerning the detention pond. Is that a real deep? Is it retaining water? Should there be a fence around it? You don't want folks falling down or kids and so forth. So I think there should be some consideration to how that's preserved and protected, or folks are protected from that. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. Would anybody like to craft this motion?
I'll try.
Thank
I move that we accept the conceptual approval of the townhouses in Cam's Corner with the conditions set by the Far West Design Review, in addition to visiting with the traffic engineering for safety purposes, and the other recommendation for a fence around the retention pond in the development.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Michael.
Booker,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes,
Sargent,
Yes.
Swift.
Yes.
Thank you. Nicely crafted.
thank you.
All right, second on the agenda comes under the Euclid Corridor Buckeye Design Review, EC 2022, Midtown Food Truck Park, seeking conceptual approval. It's at 7412 Carnegie Avenue. I'd ask who's here to represent. Pardon?
Hi, my name is Derek Childs, and I am the builder, Container Homes USA, and the general contractor that will be on the job.
And who else might be presenting?
I believe it's just gonna be me. I'm gonna do the best I can do.
Okay, Mr. Childs, I need to swear you in.
Yes, sir.
No feedback here. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth for this matter now and hearing, as you shall answer to God under the authority of perjury? I'm in my own head. Okay.
When he's not speaking.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'm not that savvy. Please proceed, please.
He's muted right now.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes,
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. Do you put up our presentation, our project on there for people to follow, or am I just gonna go down on my own? Oh, there we go. Perfect. Awesome. My name is Derek Childs, and I'm the Director of Construction Design for Container Homes USA. And I've been retained to be the general contractor on this project and try to get us through it. Our presentation outline is going to be the project proposal, the site existing, condition photos. We have 3D renderings. We did change the colors because they wanted them more vibrant, so those will be at the end of the pitch deck. And then also inside of the slide, you're going to see the site's existing condition, the site layout plan, the utility, and the finished grade plan, as well as landscaping and the site lighting plan and the section details for the build of the amphitheater and of the 20-foot standing bar. Can we go to the actual photos up here. What we're working on here is at 7412 Carnegie. This proposed project is currently named Midtown Food Truck Park because we're right there in the heart of Midtown. And it's owned by the Holmes Property Investments LLC. The property acquired will be turned into a food truck park complex, which we will also take the two-car mechanics existing garage and remodel it into a sports bar for the area, which we found no existing ones currently at this time. There will be a 20-foot container that will be converted into an amphitheater that will be set at the back of the site, which will be lined with trees on the back to help contain some of the sound. Where live bands will be featured daily, there will be a large area set up for seating as well as another 20-foot container that'll be converted into a walk-up mini bar. There'll be 4 spaces that'll be designated, as you see on the drawing, the black trucks there. Those are the food trucks, and it will be set up for 4 food trucks, which will be interchanged throughout, bringing in different foods. We believe since there is nothing like this in the Cleveland Midtown area, this is going to be a great service to the brand new apartment buildings, which are across the street, which look awesome. And we want to try to gather some of that clientele from over there. The new sports bar will also be able to celebrate the Cleveland Browns, the Cavs, the Indians, the Monsters, the Buckeyes, as we look forward to servicing 7 days a week in the venue. So our project goals for this is converting the existing garage into a sports bar, which will also include an ADA women's bathroom and an ADA men's bathroom as well. We'll have the 2 fabricated containers, which are going to be on the outside. We'll have new underground electric and water supply that are going to lead to each one of the food trucks and the bar. We'll have a new parking lot put in, providing 18 spaces for passenger vehicles, 4 spaces for 4 20-foot food trucks, and picnic areas. We have also retained permission on the lot next door to use their parking lot, the billiards hall, for any overflow traffic that we may have. Metal guardrails 30 inches off for parking spaces, landscaping, including bioswales and stormwater underground detention system. We also have site lighting that's going to go throughout the entire complex, as well as a dumpster enclosure. What you're seeing now, that is the amphitheater. It's going to be pretty fancy. Roll cage door will go up and the bands will go behind it. And that's a nice steel canopy. It's going to add some really a nice look, I think, to the amphitheater as well. At the end of here we go. This right here is going to be our existing conditions for the property. And then the next one is going to be the site, the new layout of which we're proposing to put in. You'll see the roundabout. In that roundabout area, we have changed it. We're going to make that colored stamped concrete so we can designate what's for pedestrian and what's for cars. We're also on the Carnegie side of it. When you get the landscaping page, after speaking with the previous board members from yesterday, they've asked for us to take the move the fence in from the sidewalk and create shrubs on the outside to give a nice clean walkway for pedestrians that are going to be walking. In the middle, where you see the 3 circles, those are trees, and they asked for us to change the tree to a larger shade tree, so once it grows, that you'll have more shade, and make sure we accommodate for the growth of the tree as well. Right at the entrance there, I think it's going to be the previous page, this new site layout. We have 1 arrow there, and we have agreed to widen the apron there and the entrance in there to accommodate 1 arrow in and 1 arrow out. And then on the one that's going out, which is strictly used for the trucks, we're going to also put up signage designating that for truck exit only. Let's see, on the fence side of it, back on the actual site plan, where you'll see a fence, it's going to be a fence there. We're going to add in the middle where the green grass is, we're going to add a pedestrian fence in the middle there to the left, or to the right, I'm sorry. that green area, we're gonna take that existing fence that's there, and we're going to remove a portion of it and put in a fence strictly for pedestrians that will be walking. I think that's about it. My nerves are okay now. If anyone has any questions. Oh,
Great
one
job.
last thing. Can you go? Can you go to the bottom of the pitch deck where the colors are? We wanted to make sure we get our colors approved, and we also have provided the letter from the owner of the property next door, allowing the parking spaces. Should be coming next. There we go. So right there, we are taking the existing building, which is bluish and grayish right now, and we're going to do that one in the color of the Buckeyes, because everyone here is a Buckeye, hopefully. But we're going to turn that to gray and scarlet there, scarlet and gray on the exterior. And then on the next photo, this is the amphitheater. So we have changed this to the colors of our great Cleveland Cavaliers. And then on the next one, we have switched this color to our Super Bowl future Cleveland Browns. When we were at the meeting previously, one of their concerns were, if you notice in the other pictures, that the units were of a grayish color. And they had stated to me that they were looking for something that was a lot more vibrant. So we went with the change it to the colors of the sports team, local sports team.
Thank you, Mr. Childs. I'm going to ask that you mute. Thank you. We're going to entertain any staff comments now.
Sure. First, I'll read the Euclid Corridor Design Review comments. The conceptual the committee recommended conceptual approval with conditions. Landscaping plan required for final review. Entrance drive for cars should be reviewed for possible enlargement, as Mr. Childs mentioned. Signage needed to let motorists know that they need to park in designated areas only. Move the fence and improve landscaping, the tree lawn area with shorter shrubs in front of fence and larger trees behind. Add pedestrian entrance to fence area. Moving into just some quick staff comments. This is across from the food businesses at the Food Hub, Carnegie, over there on 75th and Carnegie, so there's a theme here. I did want to raise awareness that there would be variances needed for, we believe, some of the parking spots, and there might be a rear setback with the stage near the back. So if we approve the conceptual, then we ought to make note of that. If you would like in the motion. Overall, the use seems to be. There is residential behind this, facing Cedar, so that's also something.
Okay. Thanks, Director Wong. Any comments from the commission?
Would the director like to comment on the Ohio State coloring?
Mr. Childs, Wolverine. That is A-okay. It was my choice to move to Ohio, so I have to deal with scarlet and gray.
The team up north, yep.
Jokes aside, I agree with the design review comment about adding pedestrian entrance, because I do think that there will be just a lot of people who walk there, but I also think that relatively speaking, I think the parking lot is sort of small, so I anticipate that people will maybe like park across the street by Cleveland Bagel or something. So I'm wondering, this is a bit beyond Mr. Child's purview, but it has are there discussions within the city or PetBot about how people are going to cross Carnegie? Because that seems like that's a dangerous place to play Frogger. But I anticipate a lot of the people walking will be walking from a car across the street. So I think we need to take into consideration how people are getting safely across the street, in addition to people who are coming purely as pedestrians. So.
I have a few questions or concerns. One, on the sports bar, that render showed no windows. But probably want to include some windows on that establishment. It just seems like a metal box in the middle of a parking lot. Aside from, I guess, the doors to get in there, Number two, I'm not really sure of the material. I mean, the plan that you showed didn't really articulate the change in material. You said that you're gonna do colored or stamped concrete on the driveway for the path of the food trucks. But I'm wondering if there's any other delineation of material for where people are sitting in the areas where there's a lot of tables and chairs. I think a good precedent, and this is probably gonna lead to my next question, is like, is the parking needed by zoning to have there? And this is like a good precedent, and maybe is the Lakewood food truck park, where I mean they prioritize a lot of just like seating opportunities with the food trucks directly adjacent. I'm not sure again, in regards to circulation, this might be a little bit different, but I think again, in the idea of like varying the material, but then also prioritizing the user experience and giving places for people to sit and different opportunities to sit. Again, a pretty good precedent. And I just want to say that just for everyone's understanding that the shelf space that is for performances is not considered an amphitheater. Like you need to rise like seating levels in order to be considered an amphitheater, just by definition. Right.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I had one. How many trucks will this accommodate, food trucks? It was a question actually to the presenter.
Four.
I have two questions. The first is this just a fair weather venue? Is this all year round, minus the trucks? How's it supposed to work during the year? Mr. Childs.
During the winter months, the outside will be closed, weather pending if it's bad weather, but the sports bar will be open in the garage that'll be renovated.
Okay. And sort of the other comment, which is really new, please. Thank you. The other comment or opportunity, more importantly, is looking at, just to piggyback on Charlie's point on how this really functions within the greater context. Because as I recall, I think the major light with the signal that you can activate it, I believe, is at 79th. 71st, yeah. So sort of, there's no crosswalk mid-block, as it were, between those two major intersections. So there is an opportunity, because that's, quite frankly, if it's difficult to get there, people aren't going to use it. And conversely, we don't want folks, we don't want any fatalities or accidents to happen either. So that's a conversation, hopefully, with Midtown and other stakeholders, maybe Gordon at the food co-op. So,
Mr. Chair, are you finished?
Yeah.
I would like to respond to, so this area is in the Carnegie planning area for the Transportation for Livable Communities Initiative, the TLCI. Basically what it is like a transportation plan that was adopted by the Planning Commission in 2018. So this area actually will be going through further construction documents in the coming year. I believe and I don't want to speak out of turn because I haven't seen it recently, but the plan actually called for pedestrian refuge and for some problem solving in this particular area because the roads jog. And so I anticipate that as the construction and design goes forward for Carnegie, that we would work with the stakeholders to problem solve for that crossing. I did want to also note that given the new transportation demand management legislation that was passed, this is within the 5-minute walk shed of public transit. So parking is not required necessarily, but it is what the property owner deems necessary to build. So there are no minimums coming as of March 2024 for this particular area.
Well, the nice thing, because I don't live too far from here, you have a new bank, you have Dunkin', you have Angie's, you have other businesses about to open up where Cleveland Bagel's located. So there's some nice synergy going on there. Hopefully it's a little better curated as we navigate the next phases of construction. So having said that, I like to entertain.
I'll take a stab this time.
Sure.
I move to approve the Midtown Food Truck Park conditional. This is conceptual or final?
Conceptual.
This is conceptual approval with following conditions. As noted by design review, the landscaping plan is reviewed further. Specifically that entrance drive to the park should be reviewed for enlargement, signage for motorists, letting them know where to park, moving the fence and improve the landscaping, shorter shrubs near the fence and larger trees, and adding a pedestrian entrance to the fence area. In addition to those, I please make sure, colleagues, that I didn't miss anything. Consider reducing the parking to expand the amount of seating, adding fenestration to the sports bar concept. And I don't know if it would be proper to add the Carnegie pedestrian access, since that's beyond the purview of the project itself. So I think
I
I'd
would
leave
maybe
that out.
add, if I could jump in, Mr. Chair, add a note about coordinating with PetBot and with the planning department around the Carnegie.
Yeah, so, yeah. And finally, coordinating with PetBot related to pedestrian access and crossing the road. Go ahead, I have a friendly amendment.
There's also with the conditions, with the stronger pedestrian connection needed in the outer court and grass area.
Thank you.
We entertain a second?
I second.
Just before I call a roll, I would just like to make a comment. We have an opportunity to look at what's going on a street over at Euclid and 61st and 66. All this works together, in my opinion. We're going to be seeing another townhouse project in Midtown. We need to start looking holistically at how all these connect. We need to figure out how that tissue allows people to access all these opportunities, whether to cut through, whether there's pedestrian refuge, whether there's biking. We need to make sure that it's all coordinated. And I'm not really sure if that's totally happening. And if it is, I apologize, but I think we need to not just look at the postage stamp, but look at the opportunities beyond that. Roll call, please.
Zucker,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
No.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Good luck, Mr. Childs. Okay, the next.
Can I ask one question, sir?
No, we're done. I would
done.
have you
Okay.
direct any questions to staff.
any questions to staff,
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next item on the Euclid corridor docket is EC 2324, 2023-24, One Midtown Homes. Looking for conceptual approval, is located at 1964 East 73rd Street. And do we have the applicant here who's going to be presenting this project?
Yes, this is Howie Hayden with Dimmitt Architects.
Are you the only presenter?
Yes, I believe, I do not see Stephen Vazza on, so yes, I will.
Okay. I have to swear you guys in. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth for this matter now in hearing, as you shall answer to God under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. I do have a question before we begin, Director Wong.
Certainly.
Is this under the new code, form-based code, or is this still outside of that?
Still outside of that.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. So we're here to present the Euclid Avenue Midtown Townhouses that last was presented in front of Design Review and Planning Commission in 2018 for approval on the Pocket Park at Euclid and 73rd. Since then, the developer has purchased a parcel to an adjacent property and would like to add a townhouse to the development in the same architectural styling of these facades that you're seeing on this slide here. So that's kind of the summary. Is we're looking to gain approval to add an additional building into the complex. So we'll go from 23 for sale residences up to 30 for sale residences for the full project. So here's the location map at Euclid Avenue and East 73rd. Go to the next slide, please. Just kind of a detailed blow up of it. We're just a little bit away from Cleveland Foundation's new building. But yeah, so Euclid Avenue and East 73rd, this Google aerial shows kind of the undeveloped property. And if you notice in the back, there's the 4-story brick building, brick apartment building that is the property that has been purchased and raised since that was modeled out. And you can see the adjacent, just above that is an existing single family home that currently is occupied and resides, is maintained. So that would be our neighbor to that side. So here would be Google aerials or Google Street views of the present kind of conditions of Simpson Court and the proposed parcel that we're intending to add a new 7-apartment townhouse to it. And then I guess in this slide, if you look in the bottom right, you can see that 4-story that has since been raised, and an existing building that kind of occupies the corner right there of Simpson Court and 73rd that we do not have contact with that landowner. We can go to the next slide. So here's what was previously entitled and approved by Planning Commission. The kind of 4 buildings. Right now, there have been 2 that have been constructed. The kind of operative of that, the 2 buildings that make that L, have been built and constructed. There's been the road, private drive has been built, and the 2 buildings in Pocket Park fronting Euclid Avenue and East 73rd are intended to be in this next phase of development when this additional building across from Simpson Avenue that we're requesting today is also constructed. So again, in red on the right, that would be the proposed new development. It will be the same end units and middle units that we've previously presented and approved to the board. So one thing to touch on here for pedestrian arrival, we'd be primarily seeing somebody walking from Euclid Avenue down East 73rd, and then we have a pedestrian walk that could access the front of the units, and then Simpson Avenue is more of a service alley that spans between East 73rd and East 71st Street, and the adjacent warehouse to the north just has like loading on it, so it's being used as mainly a garage corridor. So pedestrian experience would be best, coming down East 73rd and up the walks to their front entries, and along there we do have bollard lighting to illuminate that at a pedestrian scale, and to be mindful. So here we're just showing that we would be continuing with the same landscaping, plantings and schedules that we've used. Next slide. This is the lighting that has been previously approved, and so we would do the bollards would be in a similar style. Next slide. So here's a dusk rendering of the courtyard view. And so we do not have a rendering of this new building at this point, but it would be graphically the same architectural character that you see here. Would be using the same materials, same facade articulation. Next slide. This would be the Euclid Avenue building. Next slide. So this would be the corner again. And I think we could maybe just page through to the end, and I'd be available for any questions at this time.
Thank you. Planning staff?
Thank you to the chair. The design review committee did recommend an approval for conceptual conditions, including stronger pedestrian connection within the auto court, grass area to provide the landscaping plan for final review. and to add lighting for the pedestrian path on this additional phase, as well as the connection to the courtyard, and to show entrance elevation on Simpson Avenue in the pedestrian court. I did want to note that it sounds like the applicant did address some of the pedestrian connections in the presentation. Just in terms of some comments from staff, this proposal is replacing a former multifamily building, so there has been prior residential use of actually greater density here. Because this is conceptual, as they move forward, we would recommend that the applicant send the final dimensions to zoning staff for review under the townhouse code and to do a formal zoning review. And so Shannon Leonard, the chief zoning officer, did say that they may need man doors if the new legislation for townhouse code passes before schematic. So overall, the conceptual does match what was previously proposed, and so it's just for your consideration. Thanks.
Before we entertain comments from Planning Commission, I have a procedural question. Since this project's been approved, obviously there's been 2 buildings constructed, would it be necessary to come back here? Could we remand any further comments or design like the planning staff? Because it sounds, well, at least appears to me, they're building the same thing. It's just the site conditions need to be worked out and some other particulars. Would that be a stretch?
So to the chair, if you do agree, and the commission agrees, you may recommend that as they proceed through design review, that any final approvals can be signed off by staff. However, it does require the applicant to proceed through design review still.
Oh,
So
I understand.
I just want to make sure the applicant
Well, I
is
was
there.
just trying to figure out how we could help expedite something that's been seen and proven, obviously. It's been constructed.
Yep. Yeah, to summarize, I would recommend the formal staff review for zoning, and then if the commission desires to allow the staff for final sign off.
Okay, well, I'll leave that to the commission then. Thank you, Director. Any comments or questions from commission? I do have a question before we entertain a motion. My question is, why aren't you considering building the other 2 buildings in the first phase first to get that street presence prior to building the back building? Just a question.
And that was brought up yesterday at the meeting. And what Stephen had said is he doesn't really view it as a phase. It's more of he wants to kind of he's viewing it, I think, of building all 3 at the same time is my understanding. We're kind of building them up. So he said he doesn't really view it as phasing, but he'd like to get the additional 7 units to add the density to the development from 23 up to 30. And so he's viewing it as the next phase 2. He had to put the project on pause throughout COVID, and he got the first 2 built out, sold, and then he kind of put a hold on it, and would like to now re-engage on it.
I mean, I get it. I think there's an excellent opportunity to proceed because you have the Foundry building their last couple phases across the street, and I think there's good evidence that there's the market there. So that's what I would strongly recommend. I'm not going to suggest that we make a motion to that, but I think from a business perspective, I think you have more attraction. So anyway, commission.
Let me take a stab at this one. I make a motion that we accept, this is, what is this? Is this final?
Oh,
Conceptual, I'm sorry. Conceptual approval of the One Midtown Townhomes with the conditions set by the Euclid Corridor Design Review. In addition, that they submit final dimensions of the townhomes to the zoning staff and any other final approvals to the planning staff.
Second. Roll call, please.
Sorry, so wait.
Oh.
Right, Fluker,
Yes.
McCray Scott.
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank
We're
you.
now transitioning to the Downtown Flats Design Review. It's a demolition proposed for docket 2023-040, a two-story industrial building seeking final approval, per ordinance 34108. The address is 1300 Carnegie. May I ask who's here to present that?
Hideo Satka with the Maria Demolition.
Okay. All right, please proceed, please. Oh, that's
Yes,
for me?
we're
Okay. Yes, I need to swear you in, sir.
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth for this matter now in hearing, that you shall answer to God under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Yes, we're asking for approval of demolition of 1300 Carnegie Avenue. It's on this very poor condition building. The structure is damaged, the roof is collapsing, and the owner, well, I represent the owner at this point. I don't know, he's probably online too, but we feel that this building is very unstable and it's in danger. And also, we get calls all the time from the police that, people try to break the cars on a parking lot next door.
I don't curse it very well.
And hide it, and we don't want any crime scenes or anything happening to this, on this property, because it's been vacant for 20 years.
I have a problem with that.
And we feel that it's a nuisance to the city, and we rather, raise it down, and it's affecting the businesses around, like the people always get complained, and we get, phone calls from the police department that people, try to break into cars and, try to do all kind of stuff, inside, outside, even though it's locked, somehow people break in sometimes too. So you can see inside pictures, and, outside too, the wall is cracked and I don't know if you can zoom it in, but
Does that conclude your presentation, sir?
yes.
Thank you. We're going to entertain any comments from staff.
Yeah, so the committee agreed to approve the demolition. The building really doesn't have any architectural significance in the area and has been vacant for a period of time. But what they did ask is that he work with staff after the approval, just to make sure that the leave behind is something that's acceptable to the city.
Yes.
Because he initially said that he wanted to grade and seed it and do it to city specs, but then the owner had mentioned something about paving, and so we were a little bit concerned about that because it could also encourage parking, and so we are going to try to work with him, one, to put a barrier between his existing parking lot and the vacant lot that will be left behind, but then also looking at we're thinking more towards just planting grass, but maybe a low mow grass or something like that where he doesn't have to do this much. So I think that was part of his concern, was the continued maintenance of cutting grass. We'll work with him.
Thanks, Ms. Fields. Any comments from the commission?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also have continued maintenance concerns because this property's been under the same ownership for 23 years. So my comment is that the property has been allowed to deteriorate to this point. The property has been allowed to become a public nuisance by the property owner, who is now seeking our help in remedying the problem that he created. And that is very frustrating to me. And quite frankly, I'm not sure if the right stage at this point is to approve with the condition of the applicant working with staff, or if the right trajectory is to disapprove and compel them to design that plan and bring it back to us for full approval, because I don't like being effectively in the position of rewarding bad behavior, and that's what this feels like.
Any further comments from commission? Well, Mr. Slack, would you like to?
I move to disapprove and request that the property owner work with staff to design the plan that was characterized by Ms. Fields and bring that back for another bite at the apple.
The
So
second?
we will,
We're done with that, sir. We're done with public comment, or at least your presentation, I'm sorry.
okay, sorry.
You had a second, Michael?
Right.
Roll call.
Fluker,
No. I mean, yes. Ooh,
Yes to disapprove.
yes to disapprove. Got to process.
Yes.
Sonny,
Yes.
Swart,
Yes.
Need a little levity and comic relief, right? At my expense, self-deprecation. Thank you. Second, under the downtown flags design review, seeking approval for docket 2023-46 Playhouse Square North design, a display sign, seeking final approval, 1550 Chester Avenue. Do we have the applicant here who's going to present? No. Can we move on? Can we postpone this one and move on?
Sure. If they come back, would we be willing to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, come back later today.
Yes. So we're gonna skip that. The third docket item under downtown flags design review, the Cleveland Police Headquarters, docket number 2023-45, seeking a conceptual design approval. It's located at 2530 Superior Avenue. I think Mr. Augustides is here for presentation. I need to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth for this matter now in hearing, and you shall answer to God or under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, before you proceed, Mr. Augustides, I do want to make note to the commission that this came before the commission as a mandatory referral. So you all have viewed the police headquarters before.
Mhm.
And so I would encourage, through the chair, Mr. Augustides, to highlight kind of the new elements that have been presented to the design review committee and then to us.
Anyone with my name is cool, so. Yeah, or vice versa. You might be my senior, so.
Thank you for the opportunity to present the project. Obviously, a big project for the city, very important project for the Division of Police. We're very excited to present the design concept as it currently stands. We are working diligently with the city and with the developer, which is Turndev, to get the project moving forward very quickly. We have had a very good discussion with the Architectural Review Board, and would like to present to you the concept as it was presented. So there really haven't been any changes since we presented it to Architectural Review Board. Project description is redevelopment of the existing art craft building. It's almost 300,000 square feet of an industrial warehouse. And the Division of Police will fully occupy the building with all of its administrative functions. There's not going to be any detention or jail facilities within the building. There will be a new addition built behind the building that is a Category 4 building that will house the Real-Time Crime Center and the Fusion Center. These are critical operations for the Division of Police and need to have a connection into the aircraft building. Immediately behind that, we are proposing a 450-car garage that will accommodate just staff parking. There is visitor parking accommodated on the site, and we are looking at obviously a full site plan development. I just wanted to pause for a moment and also indicate that there are a few other people on the call representing the design team. Joe Berardi from Berardi Partners is the firm that is responsible for the historic renovation of the envelope of the building. And he will be making some comments here shortly at the appropriate time. As I indicated, the site plan is going to accommodate visitor parking. A big component of the design is strategically locating entrances into the building. There's no real entry at this point on the Superior side that goes into the body of the building. There are two entrances that go into the existing stairwells, but there currently is nothing that accesses the body of the building. The entire first floor has been your window openings on the first floor have been filled in with brick and some clear story type windows. The intent is to replace all that. We will be preparing and presenting an entry off Superior, but the main visitor entry is on the south side of the site. We are going to be putting a small addition into one section of the building that would provide the main public lobby. And would also accommodate some security sequences that are required by the Division of Police. Next slide, please. We did go through a zoning review. There are a couple minor items that we need to address with zoning. It is a semi-industrial area, no real site restrictions. We are working through a liner issue now with the zoning department. The Architectural Review Board is, in my view, seemed amenable to the screening opportunities that we provided on the west side of the garage. They asked for additional or similar screening on the east side of the garage, which we are exploring at this point. I don't know, Mark, if there was anything that you wanted to add to that, or
yeah, I guess I can. So the committee, they were, like he said, they were amenable to him doing the screening rather than a liner wall. I think it will probably be likely some safety concerns if we were to put a liner building on the police department, but the code does require it. We are trying to work with Rick Riccardi. Unfortunately, he's been out since we've kind of been aware of this concern about the requirement for the liner building. It was, I guess initially we were thinking that he could get a variance. When he looked at the code, he was questioning it because I guess there's some language in the code that kind of, that alludes to the fact that he may not be able to get a variance. So we're trying to clarify that with Rick Riccardi. Shannon seems to think that it is okay, and that he can get a variance. She just suggested that it would be a lot easier to do it if you do the enhanced landscaping with the walls.
Thanks,
And
Ms.
the concern that we have was that the language refers to overlay districts. The district now has a live work overlay consideration. So that's fundamentally the clarification that we're looking for at this point. So
To perhaps clarify, is it that there's two overlays here and we're trying to figure out which one supersedes the other?
thank you. So next slide, please. Location is Superior and East 25th. The east border is the ramp, the on-ramp that goes down into the inner belt. Very prominent site as you're driving on the inner belt. Next slide, please. And this is an existing site image that highlights the project site. Artcraft on the left, and then the property to the south of the building is where we are proposing the Category 4 building and the garage, the entrance plaza for the public and visitor parking. Next slide, please. Some contextual images, if you're not familiar with the building. You can see that the building is a prominent building in this part of Cleveland. 7-story building in an area where we have mostly industrial type buildings, 1, 2, and 3-story buildings. So it's very prominent and very visible with a historic water tank on the roof. Next slide, please. The proposed site plan, and we have more detailed images of the site, but what we wanted to show was how the building and the additions fit into the neighborhood as a contextual type of an image. It is, we feel the changes that have occurred or how the design has evolved over the last 6 months has significantly improved and is a far more comfortable scale for the Category 4 building in the garage as it relates to the entire neighborhood. Next slide, please. So this image here is actually the site plan that we are proposing. You can see the Artcraft building on the left side of the image. The floor plan within the first floor is going to accommodate a lot of the public functions that are necessary for the Division of Police. There are a number of walk-up counters that are going to be located off the public lobby. On the left, you can see the 3 entrances. The 2 that are top and bottom are existing, and those feed into the existing stairwells, fire exits out of the building. Those have a historic terracotta, and we'll show that image here shortly. It's a historic terracotta surround, which will be restored per National Park Service standards. The middle entrance is the one that we are proposing as a new entrance, so that there is a pedestrian entry off of Superior into the public lobby. There will be a central security desk that will monitor people coming in and out of the building from both the Superior side and what we are proposing as a small addition on the south side of the building. The first floor will also accommodate the police museum and a community room that will be available for public use. It will accommodate a number of functions, and the intent with the plaza design is that there may be opportunities for the Division of Police to have events out in the plaza, whether they're badging ceremonies or perhaps some other programmed elements for community use. The plaza serves a number of different functions from that perspective. This is conceptual, and we are working with the landscape architect for the city of Cleveland and our landscape architect to fully craft a solution that provides a very positive and comfortable experience for visitors coming to the site. But just as important is the hardening aspect of the building. We need to protect the building from vehicles approaching the building that may have a bad intent. It is a concern that every police facility in the country has. This building provides some special challenges because it's so close to the streets. And Superior can become a high-speed street. So the concern is that we need to provide barriers at the perimeter of the building. And we're exploring options on how we can do that. What we're proposing right now is a blend of bollards and concrete planters so that we can provide some greenery at the perimeter of the building and provide protection at the same time. The first floor will have ballistic rated film on all the windows. There are 2 corners of the building, the northeast and southwest corners, where there will be Division of Police staff will have a ballistic rated, it's not a polygon, but it's some type of a plastic panel that's going to be behind the historic glass. So tonally, there will be a little bit of a difference from the outside, but we need to provide that level of protection for staff working on the first floor. As far as vehicular access and circulation is concerned, we are looking at 2 curb cuts to access the visitor parking. We're looking at approximately 40 cars now for the parking, for visitor parking. They would circulate through the visitor parking, which you can see on the bottom side of the plan. And we are providing a drop-off at the plaza. That drop-off was strategically located on the south side of the building because we needed to keep those cars further away from the building. That's why we're not providing one on the Superior side. We need to, again, think about how do we protect the building and staff inside. That was also part of a Department of Homeland Security report, so we kind of included some of the commentary from what's technically is federal level. Staff parking would occur in the garage. They would access the site from the south side of the site. They would pull up to a security gate and then go through the security gate into the garage. Other staff parking would occur on the east side of the garage at grade. You can see at the top there are 4 rectangles that would accommodate trailer parking, trash containers, backup generator, and the transformers would be located on the east side of the site as well. We are also providing a security gate that goes directly out onto the on-ramp, going down to the inner belt. That is two-way traffic up to that curb cut. There is some longer-term plans from ODOT to abandon that ramp. When that happens, this access point will remain in place. So that would become dedicated solely to police access, staff access. The Category 4 building is the small block that you see between the garage and the building, the Artcraft building. As I said earlier, this houses critical functions for the Division of Police. It also provides storage for some of their larger vehicles on the first floor. There is separate entrances and exiting off the garage, segregated away from the Category 4 building. There's a connection between the Real-Time Crime Center and the Fusion Center at the 3rd and 4th floor of the Artcraft building.
Mr. Augustis, for us lay people, what does Category 4 mean?
Category 4 is a enhanced structural frame for the building so that it withstands higher wind loads, higher snow loads, and things of that nature. So it's just an enhanced structural frame for the building. But to that point, Mr. Fluker, there's a storm shelter on the first floor of the building that would be in itself a segregated or separate structural frame that would protect people in a catastrophic event. If the buildings collapse, that piece is designed to withstand the collapse and allow people to survive within that space for a period of time. Next slide, please. The elevations are illustrating the intent for the restoration of the facade of the building, and Joe Variety will talk about this momentarily. There will be a wholesale replacement of all the windows. The additions are shown at the bottom image, where we have the Category 4 building immediately against the Artcraft building, and then you can clearly see how the garage is going to be structured behind that. From a design perspective, what we try to work with, we're basically 2 approaches. One, is the scale of what that looks like related to the Artcraft building, and working with the proportions of the Artcraft building to begin to influence how we shape the forms of the proposed additions. There are opportunities for badging and providing building signage. We feel as a critical civic building, we would like to have a very strong signage component to the project so that it's very clear that this is the Division of Police Headquarters, and we are proposing this type of signage on both sides of the Category 4 building. We have some renderings that better illustrate that as we move forward. Next image, please. These are renderings or elevation studies from the south side. You can see what the garage looks like up against the Artcraft building at the top image. We do have the darker tone squares that you see where the windows are louvers for the mechanical systems. The type of system that we have will require vent louvers, and we've located everything strategically to the south side of the building so that the superior side is very clean and maintains the historic character. All the new construction, the new character is on the south side of the building. Bottom image, very similar to what we showed on the east side of the building, the Category 4 building between the garage and the Artcraft building. The historic water tank is something that we're studying now. It is in very poor condition. We are evaluating budgets for cleaning and repainting versus a wholesale replacement of something that would be basically a replica, but something that would be new and lightweight, whether it's fiberglass or some other material. We're still going through that evaluation, but at the end of the day, we're going to have a water tank on the roof that looks like the water tank that's there now. Next slide, please.
Mr. Chair, through the chair, could we move past the interior drawings to continue with the exterior, since that's the main purview?
Sure. Yeah, so if we can continue.
Yes.
Brian, if you can move forward. Yeah, we've got some illustrations, 3D model illustrations of the entire project. Again, this is very conceptual in its illustration. We have better renderings as we move through the presentation. And at this point, I'd like to get Joe Berardi to talk about the exterior renovation of the Artcraft building.
Mr. Berardi, before you begin, I need to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth for this matter, now in hearing, as you shall answer to God or under the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. So our primary focus is the restoration of the Artcraft building as it exists. As a point of clarification, the project is not seeking any federal or state historic tax credits. However, there is a conservation easement placed on the project, which requires us to follow the Secretary of Interior standards. So a lot of the work that we are providing and proposing as part of this project are in compliance with the Secretary of Interior standards, which includes repointing of the brick, cleaning of the brick, reworking the rear concrete frame that's exposed, that in the second image on the top column, you can see starts to show some deterioration that has concrete that's falling. It also is requiring us to address the water tank that Michael was just previously discussing. A lot of these discussions have already occurred with the local conservation board, in particular, Mr. Tom Yablonsky, as well as Dwayne Van Dyke, the technical reviewer for the district. These images really start to illustrate some of the existing conditions in greater detail. Top left is showing the southwest corner that has brick that was previously painted. The image directly below the top left shows some of the test patches where we're trying to remove some of the paint just to kind of better understand the color and impact of any material that's being removed to ensure that we're not damaging any historic brick. Next slide, please. This is an image of the existing stairwell entrance and egress component that Michael was just discussing. A lot of our intent is to restore the existing terracotta. We are going to replace the existing double doors and side lights and the transom above. We'll use a product that's very similar to a product that's been used on other historic projects. It'll be an aluminum system, likely a Graham or Quaker system, depending on budget and going through the shop drawings. But these will be replicated essentially as they are shown. Next slide. And these are just existing images of the condition of the brick. As you can see in the top right corner, there's damaged brick, there's mortar that's missing. And the intent is that we're going to go back in with a type N mortar so it matches exact what is currently there in terms of hardness, the texture of the exposed aggregate, along with the tooling profile. The image in the middle also starts to show the industrial steel windows.
Mr. Berardi, we're not landmarks, so we appreciate the technical description, but I think we just need to stick to the aesthetics and how it's going to finally be restored and what it might look like. Thank you.
If you want to skip to the window drawings, next slide. As Michael was indicating, this is our proposed elevation. We are providing a window that is compatible with what is currently there. So we'll have a faux floating operator mimicking what is currently on site. Lower level will have a intrusion film applied to the window, but the visual impact shouldn't be anything negative. This is a rear image showing, oh, sorry. So these are just window storefront drawings showing the replacements. Next slide.
Joe, if I can jump in here just for a moment. If we can move, I think the critical point here is that the window replacement will be an exact replica of the existing windows. Similar color, similar proportions. The only difference is that the operable sash and the existing windows will be replicated in a fixed sash, so it'll look like an operable window, but it will be fixed. So Joe, we're gonna move on to the renderings, just so that we can just look at this from a design perspective. And I apologize for kind of jumping in and stepping on your toes here.
No worries, thanks.
So this series of images shows the renovated building within context that it currently is in the neighborhood. You can see how the Category 4 building, the garage in the back, fits into the neighborhood. Next slide, please. These are aerial images, obviously. And next slide, please. And this is an image from the Interbelt looking up at the new facility. These are existing images that we pulled off Google. We do have, the developer has committed to contacting ODOT to see if we can get that landscaping cleaned up and provide a better look for that view up to the building. This image here is the image of the proposed new entry on the north side of the building. Center, you can see the two entrances that are existing on either side, either end of the image. In the middle is the new proposed entrance into the building. The landscaping that you see in the foreground is a combination of some bollards and some concrete planters. Our intent here is to have concrete pieces that act as benches and as planters so that we can try to create a very comfortable approach to the building. There was a request from the Division of Police to provide two lighting elements on either side of the new entry to emulate some of the historic facilities that they currently have. And you can see at the third floor line, a pin-mounted backlit letter signage for the Cleveland Division of Police headquarters. We feel that the scale of the building is so large, we really try to bring down the scale as you approach the building and enter the building. Next slide, please. Image of the plaza in the back of the building, on the south side of the building. You see the visitor drop-off curb cut. The intent here is to provide some green area, some soft area, some landscaping to create a comfortable approach to the building for visitors. The main entry is kind of tucked in the corner. The design challenge here was to really craft a solution that identifies entry and provides a very clear sequence of approaching the site and then approaching the plaza and then entering into the building. We have additional images that show what that experience is actually like. This is an image from the south end of the visitor parking lot. You can see the trees along the garage that intend to replace the requirement for the liner screen. And there would be similar trees on the west end of that along the street that creates a nice kind of room, an outdoor room for the visitor parking. There would be ground signage that direct visitor parking into the parking lot, and the staff parking is occurring to the right of that public parking ground sign. Next image, please. This is a closer image of the approach to the main entry to the back. What you see in the middle part of the image is the proposed new entrance into the building. The building is shaped and it has a U shape. The intent here is to provide a new entrance lobby at the first floor only. So what you see there is the proposed design solution for that. The approach is pretty clear in terms of direction. Bollards in the foreground for building security, some landscaping, flagpoles, and then the approach to the main entry. Next image, please. And as we get closer to the main entry, you can see that on the left side of the image, canopy protection, some landscaping to the right. The bottom part of the Category 4 building will have additional landscaping, and we're proposing a wood screen to help soften the scale and approach to the entry. Next image, please. This image was really crafted to help the review for the envelope easement, the facade easement for the project. The intent here is to detach the Category 4 building from Artcraft, provide a very light touch to the Artcraft so that we're not impacting the existing envelope. We have it set off approximately 10 feet. There is a connector piece that is going to be clear glass and mirrored glass at the bottom. There are some functional program requirements at the bottom, but at the first floor that do not necessarily need clear glass. We're proposing a mirrored glass. And then you can see the connections at the third and fourth floor where there would be clear glass. Next image, please. This is a view of that same connection, but from the east side of the building. Security gate in the foreground that goes out onto the on-ramp. Scale of the Category 4 building. Proportion of the blue box emulates the proportion of the windows of the Artcraft building. The patterning of the metal panels do the same thing. We're proposing the police blue color, which was a color that the Division of Police really liked and asked us to incorporate into the design at some level. Next slide, please. This is a dusk image showing what parking could look like and a conceptual lighting concept for the site. Next image, please. Oh, that's it. So,
Thank you. Very thorough. I see Mr. Edmonds here from Capital Projects. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'm Carter Edmond. I'm the city architect, and obviously this is a very important project for us and for CDP. We're very pleased with how the design is starting to evolve. Obviously, there's still a lot of evolution still to happen, and we'll very excited with the design team we've got.
Thank you. Planning staff?
Mr. Chair, Margaret, do you want to go ahead? I'll add to.
So the committee, when they reviewed it, looked at it kind of in 3 separate parts because they're trying to move forward with purchasing the windows for the Artcraft building. So they approved schematically the site plan in the Category 4 building and the new garage structure. The Artcraft building, they gave schematic approval to. And then the windows, they wanted to approve final. So it would take, I guess, separate applications for each one. And Michael, I'm not sure if they require separate votes or if it's all one vote. Because they're, okay.
Mr. Chairman, that may modify what they're actually voting on.
Okay, all right. So, but those were the 3 different requests. I also received a notice from Shannon just a little bit ago. She looked at the code again, and what she said was that it actually can receive the variance for the liner building. So that's something that can occur.
If I may, just to clarify, the window request is, we have a very accelerated timeline for the construction, and Mr. Kluger, as you know, material is very difficult to track on a schedule basis. So the contractor and the developer requested, respectfully, of course, accelerated approval of the windows only so that order can be placed and that schedule can be set on delivery times and installation.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, I just did want to note for the record, that planning has been working with other departments around City Hall. While our fleet is not currently electrified, we're thinking ahead, and so appreciate the partnership with Capital Projects. They will be putting casings in the garage. So if and when the fleet does become electrified, there would be that possibility. So just wanted to know the thanks for that partnership.
Any comments from commission?
I think to the point that the public landscape is a big important part of this, heavily important civic project. Just some comments, and I know you guys are working through the design, kind of to unify the approach in the front and the back. The idea that concrete planters, kind of security, but then also treating that front, bringing that to the back. It seems like the use of the bollards is more like preventative and kind of like, hey, don't come in here. So it kind of sends the wrong message, especially with visitor parking in the back. I would also try to, the procession where, employees are coming out of the parking lot, but then also visitors are entering on that ramp, try to unify visitors. You seem to have like an art piece there, maybe like bring that in a more central way, kind of make that a focal point. And I think lastly, on like a tree thing, the trees against the building in the plaza are not going to provide any shade because all the south facing shade is going to go on the building. So potentially if we can pull that out so they can actually shade the plaza, think about where the flagpoles are going. And one last thing, I think you made a comment about using the same variety of trees against the parking garage for the opposite side of the parking lot. I would make those two separate varieties, one that grows directly up against the parking garage and then one that can provide more shade in the other aisle.
Thank you. And to your point about the trees against the building itself, we reviewed that as well, and we do intend on moving them away from the building. From a security perspective, we don't want people climbing the trees and trying to access the building.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, may I also suggest, the applicant did come in for conceptual, but if it behooves the commission to allow for schematic for the building footprints and the garage footprint, with the anticipation they'll come back for final for landscape, present that as an option for the commission.
I have a couple comments and I hate to sound like I'm preaching, but that's what I do. This project is a prime example of an opportunity I hope the city doesn't miss. And what I mean by that is, if we're gonna walk the walk, we're gonna talk the talk, we need to walk the walk. There needs to be charging stations in the visitors section of the parking area, in my opinion. I own an electric vehicle and I drive here and I got nowhere to charge my car here at City Hall, number one. Number two, I think we need to accommodate all modes of transportation. Scooters, e-bikes, saw your battery. I own an e-bike and the regular bikes, because I think there's an opportunity in the parking lot to sort of bifurcate or break down those spaces so that people can park their scooters, their combustion type, the larger vehicles that don't really marry well with bike racks. The other thing too, I think, as it relates to the plaza, which I commend you all on, I'm not a big fan of bollards. I just think they have a negative connotation. I think there's an opportunity to introduce some low walls that act as seating, but also provide protection. And so that if people out there enjoying the plaza, especially if you move the trees out and you got a nice shaded area, that's just a thought. I think we need to sort of demonstrate in this project that we're being innovative, because we tell everyone else to do so in the city when we look at their projects. So those are the couple things. And again, I think there's a public art component. Obviously, you guys come back with that. We understand. So that's what I have. Thank you.
If I may, the public transportation aspect is something that we have been talking to RTA about. There's a bus stop right in front of the building. And again, from a building security and safety perspective, we're looking to have that moved down the block. Again, these are just safety issues that we have to consider that are well beyond a typical office.
Thank you. We can consider a motion here, commission member?
Motion to approve schematic design for the building recommendation, including the windows and the category 4 building, and conceptual design approval for plaza space.
Can I ask about the request for a final approval for the window package?
Yes.
I think that's out of our purview, so we'll handle that with the staff. Yes.
Thanks.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Luther.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Sergeant.
Yes.
Slide.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Good luck, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. All right, we're transitioning to mandatory referral. There's no ordinance number. It looks like there's amend and enact various codified ordinance changes in zoning, building, fire, health codes to effectuate policy change to enhance the effectiveness of the building and housing changes to rental registration and out-of-state investors and other changes. And I think Ms. Martin is here to present.
That's true.
Oh, that was a mouthful.
Absolutely. Do you need to swear me in?
No.
Okay. Sally Martin O'Toole, Director of Building and Housing. It's good to see all of you. First time in front of the board, so hopefully I don't mess anything up. But we have a slide deck for you today, and I want to just kind of walk you through what we're proposing. Some of this I think is in your purview, and some of it is not. But we'll, focus on the areas that are.
And may I mention to the chair and the commission before you begin, I know we're trying to pull up the slides. This is going to move through council. My request to you all is if you would grant me administrative approval following the presentation, should the commission approve.
So this is a long time coming. And one of the harsh criticisms of the Department of Building and Housing is that, we are not addressing the influx of investors that come into the community and purchase up properties, don't do the right things with them, and let them become derelict properties. And so we're calling this package the Residents First Legislative Package. And the idea is that we're supporting Cleveland residents and revitalizing Cleveland's neighborhoods with tools in the toolbox that we don't currently have. So amending some sections of the code. So if we want to go ahead and move to the first slide. We did this through a collaborative effort with multiple partners. So one of the groups that we work very closely with is called the Vacant Abandoned Property Action Council, which is made up of a lot of lawyers. Frank Ford, Zach Germanek, Kermit Len, Ronald Darian, Phil Starr were part of this, as were a number of our city council partners, city attorneys, and building and housing staff. So next slide. So what does this package do? It amends about 23 different sections of the code. The idea being to overhaul the existing rental registration process, establish a local agent in charge requirement for rental properties, create a new vacant property registry, revamp code enforcement tools and adding new tools to address nuisance conditions that our residents are grappling with every day, and revise existing city ordinances for clarity and continuity and enforcement between divisions, so fire, health, building and housing, be more aligned. Right now, it's very bifurcated. Next slide. We did a door-to-door property survey over the winter. We assessed all 167,000 parcels in the city of Cleveland, rating things on a letter grade of A through F, also whether properties were vacant, whether they were occupied, and looking at infrastructure conditions. And so what we learned from the survey was that the percentage of A and B rated properties dropped from 78% in 2015 to 54% in 2020. So C-graded properties rose to 37%, and obviously protecting these properties from further decline is critical to neighborhood stability. And over half of all vacant structures surveyed in 2022 were graded D or F. This is no surprise to anybody who drives our streets and they see it. Vacant, dilapidated, blighted homes still prevalent. So on the east side of Cleveland, we've also learned from research is that over half of all 1 to 3 family sales have gone to non-owner occupant purchasers. So business buyers have come in and taken the majority of the sales. This is a trend we desperately want to reverse. So, and we see on the west side it's quite different, only 24% are business buyers. Next slide, please. So one of the biggest changes in the rental piece is that local agent in charge have to be identified if the owner lives outside of Cuyahoga County. So what we're finding is an influx of foreign investors, people from Israel, people from Asia, people from everywhere, buying our properties because of the wonderful high rents that we have compared to the price of property. It's giving them this incredible cap rate that they just can't resist. And so We want to demand that someone is the local agent who's going to be responsible for the property condition and someone we can call if there's a concern in the property. Next slide, please. So all non-owner occupied residential units will have to be registered in the city. This is true now, but we're actually creating two little tracks to this. So it's a little bit different. So currently what we find is a lot of loopholes are found and people are getting exemptions from rental registration when they shouldn't because of the way the existing legislation is written. The other piece for larger buildings, 4 or more unit rental properties, we're demanding an HVAC certification every year when they register their properties. So what we found last year, we had so many no heat calls all winter long. And in fact, one building on Shaker Square, they haven't had heat in 2 winters. So they've only had one functioning boiler. 2 of the boilers that were servicing parts of the building have been down for years. No intention of fixing those. And so requiring this and making sure that landlords are inspecting the HVAC equipment every year is very important. Also gives us authority to revoke a registration for noncompliance. Next slide, please. So how it works is essentially, if you have non-owner occupied properties in Cleveland, you have to register it one way or the other. We need to know who you are, where you live, who your local agent in charge is. And in order to rent in good standing and to receive a certificate approving your rental occupancy, you need to be lead safe certified. You need to correct any lead hazard control order on the parcel. You need to comply with any notices of violation. As stated before, HVAC would have to be certified for 4+ unit buildings. Also up to date on utilities for 4+ unit buildings. We're finding a number of landlords are $200,000 plus in arrears to the Department of Water. This is unacceptable. And sometimes utilities are shut off to buildings through no fault of the tenant, just because the landlord's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. And then also mandating that you be up to date on property taxes or on a current payment plan. We have about $18 million in delinquent tax on rental properties currently, which puts the tenants at risk. They're paying their rent, their landlord isn't paying their taxes, and that property could get clawed back through foreclosure. So we don't want that. Next slide, please. So one of the larger pieces which really comes into your purview is the idea of a vacant property registry. So this is the idea of every year registering vacant properties in the city, also requiring a local agent in charge for those properties so that we have someone we can hold accountable for the condition. But it also has a slight twist to it, and that is it acts as a type of point of sale for vacant residential parcels. So if you're going to sell this vacant residential house, your buyer will have to assume those violations, agree to repair them within 6 months of transfer, and post $5,000 in escrow to be held until you get your certificate of completeness that you've completed all the violations and the property is ready to be inhabited again. Vacant commercial industrial properties works a little bit differently. It's more of a bond requirement without the escrow point of sale type requirement. So we know that many of the vacant larger commercial industrial properties are falling into disrepair. This provides this cash bond upfront that the city can draw down on for any nuisance conditions at that property. So if we have to clean up dumping, etc. So next slide, please. So this is a schematic of how that works. If you own a vacant building, you need to submit registration annually or until not vacant. It requires standards of basic upkeep. No graffiti, weather tight, roof has to be intact. The city inspection is required for transfer at the time of sale or before. So a certificate of inspection would be good for a year. They could choose when they were going to get that if they were intending to sell so that they would have it. And so as you see, there's a residential track and a commercial track. So residential track requires $5,000 in escrow, assumption of violations. Commercial tracks requiring a bond depending on the size of the building and an annual registration fee. Next slide, please. Parking garages. This is definitely new. In the past, we would go out and inspect parking garages if there was a complaint. So by the time a complaint would come in, large portions of the infrastructure were falling apart and the garage was not looking safe at that time. And so what this is requiring is quite similar to our current facade ordinance, which is for taller buildings where the facade has to be inspected by a civil engineer every 5 years and certified. This would put the onus on the property owner to certify their parking garage every 5 years, quite similarly. So requiring an inspection report to be submitted to the director, notice of any unsafe condition, and owners obviously having a remediation plan for that. So we saw a parking garage collapse in another part of our county. We don't want that happening here. And so we believe this will help keep that from happening. Next slide. Civil tickets. So this is definitely a new tool in the toolbox, currently used by the Department of Waste. So if someone is leaving their trash cans out at the curb, Waste can give you a ticket. Well, what this would allow for is that fire, building and housing, and health could also assess civil tickets for various infractions. And so, you know, if your fire suppression system is not working currently right now, fire is going to go into a violation notice, and we know that's a slow process. This would allow fire to issue tickets every single day it's out of compliance. You know, you've got to get your fire suppression system back working. If you don't pay it, these would go on your property tax duplicate, quite different from other types of minor misdemeanor tickets, which would have a court process attached. This does not have a court process attached. It would be used for nuisance conditions, something that we're really not cracking any other way, especially with derelict property owners. Next slide, please. So again, here is a few of the items that would be included in this. It's pretty wide sweeping, but often we'll see someone will have bags and bags of garbage on their porch. This is where these things could come in handy. And as I stated, fire suppression system. Next slide, please. So abatement authority. So the legislative package changes a couple things. One, currently our demolition funds are used for demolition only, and they have no flexibility for other types of nuisance abatement activities. So one of the things that we're hoping to do is stabilize buildings instead of tearing them all down. So if we see a porch falling off of a house, but that house is otherwise structurally sound, we can go and stabilize that porch, or we can tarp that roof in the historic building instead of, you know, our only tool is demolition. So, you know, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, but that's not the direction we want to go in. And we want to be a little bit more nuanced in how we're addressing some nuisance conditions. And this also came in handy, and, you know, we will use it for things like this. So Shaker Square, one of those derelict apartment buildings, has not had elevator service. 8-story building, seniors living on the 8th floor, can't get down to get their groceries. The city could step in and repair that elevator using that funding stream. So it's an existing funding stream, we just want more nuance in how we're using it. So also high grass and weeds. Currently in the city, it's a very strange process. If a house is occupied, it's a health code violation. If a house is vacant, it's a streets or parks operation to cut grass. So we want to create one process where we dole out one 72-hour notice in a growing season. And then if you are on the list in the growing season, you can be abated whenever you're over 8 inches. So we think this is going to cut to the chase and actually cut grass, whereas right now, grass can get 4 feet high by the time the city comes around and cuts it. So this would give the city a little bit more flexibility in managing those type of overgrowth, high grass, weed nuisances. Next slide, please. So certificates of disclosure and statements of authorized use. So when you transfer a property in Cleveland, you have to get one of the two of those depending on the size of your building. Instead of having a 2-track process, this merges it into one. Statement of authorized or certificate of disclosure would eliminate statement of authorized use and provide one single process. We believe this will minimize loopholes and also allow us to be more aggressively prosecuting bad actors who are transferring properties without following city processes or not disclosing problems with their property. Next slide, please. Consistency and clarification. A number of amendments in this package are updating sections of the code that tend to be duplicative, conflict between the different codes. So zoning, health, fire, sidewalk code, trying to just pull all that together and make it all consistent so that it's easier to understand and it's easier to enforce. Next slide, please. That's it. It's kind of a lot.
This is impressive. Yes, it
Very.
is. Director Wong, any comments?
I just have to commend Director Martin O'Toole. I mean, she brings this energy of really just wanting to do what's right for our city. And I know her team has been at work for many, many months with council, and this will be a game changer for the city of Cleveland. You know, she was the director at South Euclid and was able to implement successfully many of these measures there. And so, you know, city of Cleveland residents deserve this. With that, you know, I'll just procedurally make the request that you would grant me the authority to administratively approve the legislation as it comes through.
Thanks. Well, the only question I have, and I understand the non-owner occupied legislation you're proposing, is how does the connectivity work? I mean, obviously, there's other institutions like the counties, and you know, how does that all come together? And for example, I'll give you an example. Say that the property does come up delinquent, there's enforcement, and it goes to a sheriff's sale. I mean, are there other interventions to make sure you prevent someone from coming in and sort of short circuiting that?
So there are at the county level. So the Vacant Abandoned Property Action Council is a group I've been involved in since I started my code enforcement career, which was about 15 years ago. So one of the partners at our table is always the county prosecutor, the county recorder. So some of the things we've been pushing for years has been the recorder not recording deeds on properties with out-of-state LLCs that are not registered in the state of Ohio. So we see it all the time. We have gotten some momentum from the recorder recently, so we are seeing a little bit more of this collaborative approach. We all do sit at the same table every month, and it helps us identify the things that are causing these problems, bless you, in the neighborhoods. And that's some of it. And I know that County Recorder O'Malley has implemented some of these changes, and also really looking at tax delinquency is a critical driver, you know, of derelict properties just churning and no one doing anything. We're also doing a lot around state of Ohio forfeited lands properties, where we're trying to get a hold of those properties that have gone through tax foreclosure twice, not sold, ended up in this never land state of Ohio forfeited lands, typically selling to $100 bidder, right? And so we're really driving some bad outcomes with that. The county has been wonderful at working with us over the past 2 cycles for state of Ohio forfeited lands, and allowing us to pull out those, to not auction those, till we can find a better way to go with that. And there's a lot of things out there to address this. One of them is something that's being spearheaded by Rocket Community Fund called Make It Home. So we're trying to keep people in their homes and trying to create home ownership opportunities. So we're working with Enterprise on that. So we have a lot of things going on at once, but I think this package of legislation is really going to be the catalyst that's going to help fuel a lot of change in Cleveland. We're retooling our entire code enforcement department, kind of turning it on its ear, so to speak, to, you know, create this type of enforcement. So that's what's going on.
I do have a question. Say, for example, one owns a house and they say, wow, I can capitalize on all these medical students, and I go lease each room. Is there some sort of a trigger or mechanism that causes them to register that house is like now it's a multi-family. It's not just
that triggers a lot of things.
Okay.
And not to mention what we're dealing with limited lodging. So with our Airbnb problem, and Director Wong has been at the table for all of this with Councilman McCormick. That legislation is going to be completely overhauled too. So if it's lodging house, boarding house, you know, it's a whole nother set of rules.
That's awesome.
That can be a problem.
Aligning the city with best practices, it sounds like.
We are trying our best. Yeah.
I always have a question about like the capacity for enforcement. So like it's great that, I mean, impressive legislation like all around, but like is the city taking the next steps to, I think, potentially hire folks to do the enforcement? And then, I mean, I'd also love the idea that civil tickets don't have like a court process. They go straight to property taxes. I think that's also very impressive. I think to August's point about making sure that when the property, like say I'm a bad actor and I'm just like, well, forget it, right? It doesn't just go into another loop of like another bad actor putting it up. And I think, you know, not only working with folks like Enterprise, but then, I mean, potentially, you know, CDC network, those CDCs that are really good at rehabbing homes or, you know, doing that real estate development lens. I think lastly, I would say, you know, kind of thinking on the grass cutting side is making sure that the city can walk the walk too, and making sure that like if we're gonna give people like a 72-hour notice on like a couple inches, our city-owned lots are mowed. Just saying, I mean, you know, just, you know, like if we gonna do that, you know.
Yes. Director Williams has done a pilot this year of hiring third-party grass cutters too.
Okay.
So they've
That's great.
they've
That's
sped
good.
that
That's
up a
good.
bit, and
Right.
they need to keep tweaking that and testing it out. But we have, for the past year and a half, been meeting together here at City Hall, all the different departments that go into the nuisance abatement process to see if we can streamline them and improve them as well. So yeah, hear all of what you say. It's also great. Great points. Thank you.
I did have to, I apologize for having to step out, so if I say anything that's repetitive, Denise just punched me right in the face. And I'll go back on YouTube. The one, thank you for bringing this forward, and this has been something we've been grappling with for a long time. Just a couple things. I would request that we find some more seamless way to notify Cuyahoga County of homes that are improperly receiving a homeowner's occupancy
Oh,
credit on
yes.
the property taxes.
Yep.
When I stumble upon them, I make a point of calling over to the county. We only get 12% of property taxes, so it's not like it's this, you know, influx of funds for the city of Cleveland. But you know, whether it's schools or the county or I feel like we should not be allowing property owners to get that free pass. But it's if you have a rental registry, there's no reason you should be having an owner occupancy credit. Also, I think more coordination when it does with the vacant lots that are privately owned that the city has to cut, making sure that we are, you know, levying those fines, getting them on the property taxes sooner, and using that as a leverage point. And then my final thought was, and this is sort of a half-formed idea. I was almost in the same way that people can put rent into escrow. I was almost thinking, is there a way that we as the city of Cleveland, if you're $200,000 behind in your water bill, could rent and escrow almost be compelled so that like the water department could essentially garnish rent, you know, so that we like compel us to be able to get our money back. Not advocating for it, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but it got me thinking about blowback to residents and what could be done by property owners that they see it more advantageous to just evict and not renew, and what are the protections baked in to make sure that we're not adversely affecting rentals, renters. Yeah. So I don't know if that's a big topic, but I want us to be cognizant of it. So
Yes, part of our working group was Phil Starr, who started the Cleveland Tennis Organization, and always thinking equity in that lens of tenant rights. And so we are.
But it's almost like there should be like something comparable to like a consent decree. That's like if,
Right.
like if you are found to be like under certain conditions this bad of a property owner, that there's like some external management, and part of your solution cannot just be to evict everybody. Like it's like we have some built-in protections for the individuals who are impacted by the bad behavior.
So interestingly enough, you know, Judge Scott has been our ally in this in many regards, because, you know, she won't allow evictions to take place if she's got a property under community control. You know, she's pretty tough stickler there. So that's been helpful. With the Shaker properties, which you all have seen in the news, you know, the city has 4 receivership motions going. So we have 3 of those Chetrit properties on Shaker Square, then we have 1 on South Moreland. So what we're hoping to do is more of that, right? More receiverships, taking the properties away from the bad actor and finding people to run them effectively. Water department can lien for their water. However, that has some serious equity implications. And NAACP did a whole study on this. So we worry always about unintended consequences, you know, and displacement unnecessarily. So
I think too, Charlie, I think we need to it's all about, I always say anyone can collect dots, it's how you connect them. And I think we need to really look at the CDC ecosystem, because most of our CDCs pretty much have a finger on the pulse of what's going on. And I'm not saying that they're the end all to be all, but I think there's a way to create that network so you create a better.
So Building and Housing has been creating that network over the past year. We meet with them every month.
Okay.
So we asked for the CDC housing group to reconvene, which they have at our request. And so we've been meeting in a room with them, and we feel like it's an important part of our strategy.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of them don't have the capacity for bricks and mortar that they used to, and I think trying to rebuild that capacity. There's a really great example out of Pittsburgh called Rising Tide Partners, which shows the capacity of a nonprofit group to come in and completely redevelop micro neighborhoods with like co-creating that with residents. So we've met with them twice. Really, this is something I think we all could model here in Cuyahoga County. So we're having those discussions also. So this is all interrelated. But to your point too, because I didn't answer it, Andrew, was about the issue of, are they going to staff this? Well, one of the things that we're grateful about is that with this Local 100 contract that just got ratified, we are creating a new classification called a property maintenance inspector. Part of the reason Building and Housing had trouble finding people is because we insisted on RBIs or BIs being the basic minimum standard. If we can bring in more of an entry-level inspector who's just doing exterior maintenance, which you truly don't need those certifications to do, we can vastly expand our reach and then use our RBIs and BIs more strategically, like on vacant building inspections. And so this is the idea. But the short answer is yes, they're going to let me staff it the way that we believe it needs to be staffed, which is a huge. So I believe, well, maybe you will let me.
Yeah.
I think Ahmed may let me. You're still.
Just for clarification, BI is building inspector.
Yes, and
Yes.
RBI is residential building inspector.
Well, Ms. Martin, I really appreciate the committee, all involved. This is a very thorough analysis and an outcome. It looks like there's you create the metrics, you analyze them. Now we have to see how we manage the outcomes and impact. So, but I think the entire commission appreciates this approach.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have to vote?
All right, we need to make a motion, I believe, that would allow Director Wong and her staff to administer this.
To approve it administratively.
Yes.
Okay.
The authority grants the authority for me to approve it administratively.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I make a motion that Director Wong be able to administer the mandatory referral amendment and enact various codified ordinances, changes in zoning, building, fire, and health codes.
Second.
Roll call, please, Mike.
Hooker.
Yes.
McCray Scott.
Yes.
Sergeant.
Yes.
Slide.
Yes.
Motion carries. I'm excited to be a Clevelander.
Yeah.
Round of applause.
Very good.
Now we gotta do it.
Well,
You'll get it done.
you got a plan though,
Yeah,
so
you
that's
got a
what's
plan.
Gotta have a plan, work a plan.
Thank you. Take care. All right, I think Mr. Einhaus is here for the Playhouse Square North design. Mr. Einhaus?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, I need to swear you in.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth for this matter now in hearing, as you shall answer to God or under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Have at it, sir.
Okay. I see that we're getting signed and laid out here. So this is a display that we want to add to the North Campus. We are no longer referring that as the back entrance to Playhouse Square, but the North Campus. We have developed pretty much everything with one minor exception between East 17th and East 13th on the south side of the street, with the State Theater Stage House, the Hofbrauhaus, our friends who own the Thomas Insurance Company, that's their building. Then we have the Playhouse Square Garage and the parking lot in the corner of 13th and Chester, which is part of future development. The other side of the street, obviously, that's where the bus station is, the Greyhound station, and we have always had our eyes on the betterment of that project going forward. At any rate, this display will be a digital display carrying our branding from Euclid Avenue back to the corner of 15th and Chester, as you can see here in these pictures. Where that blue car is sitting in the first photograph on the upper left is just about the exact location of where that will set. Going down, then you can see, if you could stay on that for just a moment, please. The lower left photograph is the view heading west on Chester, and the right is the view, well, kind of heading east on Chester, but looking again at that corner where that is. So continue, please. Next. This is in the style of the elements on Euclid Avenue. It will contain a video board that will be in keeping with all the standards that we follow on the Euclid Avenue video boards. It'll be programmed with the same information. It'll be show information and information about what's happening in the neighborhood, along with an indication that there's a parking entrance on 15th Street, which is actually the primary parking entrance for most of the guests using that garage. That garage is a 750 car garage and picks up about a third of our audience on any show night. Depending on the capacity, it could be more. So you can see there, it is out of the right of way. When you see in the actual layout, it sets in what is essentially the amenity strip. So it is in line with where the phone pole, the light poles, the fire hydrants, etc. land. And it also is outside of the ADA crosswalk. It doesn't impinge on that at all. Thank you for continuing. Again, you can see in rendering form, this gives you just the general scope of it, but we can get into the detail as we go down the drawings, down the renderings. There's the overall dimensions with the materials that'll be used. Again, all of the quality and finishes that we're putting into all of the Euclid Avenue amenities, the new marquees, etc. Continue, please. More detail on the products. Continue, please. Was there a rendering that showed the layout at the beginning? I saw it somewhere in there. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit out of touch with. There it is. If you focusing on this rendering, where the curved wall is, that is the wall of the elevated area of the Hofbrauhaus. So that is, and we are owners of that property, and we have an ownership stake in the Hofbrauhaus. You can see that the Stylon base location of display falls in line with that wall and out of the traffic line. And if you look at the details, it looks like it's in the middle of the sidewalk, but it actually falls in line with the amenity strip. That one area of the kind of irregular line of indicating where concrete is, that's all full sidewalk there. And if there were no questions, that was the one piece of clarification I wanted to get to on the details of the location. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Einghaus. Staff comments, Marka?
Yeah, the committee, when they first of all, they didn't take the vote because it's in the public right of way. But they were concerned about the sign blocking the view of the patrons of the Hofbrauhaus because it's at the same level as the seating. And so their recommendation actually was to raise it a little bit higher so that they could it wouldn't block review, and then I guess because it's also, electronic, it's kind of, it'll be a little bit distracting, I guess. So that was one of the things that, that they commented on, and also just the concern of, if you were walking down the street, somebody, I guess, walking up under it and possibly hitting their head if it was down too low. So those were that was their main concern. They didn't have any issues with the size of the sign, but really just the height of it and visibility for cars.
Mr. Chair, the reason why this is before you for a final approval is because the applicant will require an encroachment permit, which is a piece of legislation, and all legislation can be approved administratively as long as you all approve of the design. So knowing that encroachment is quite a long process, we wanted to make sure before he orders the sign, it's going to be costly, that there is a sense of approval from the
Commission members?
It looks like the height, if those folks are in scale, that you could, I mean, unless you're like 6'8", you're a cash player, should be fine. I also think it's a pretty interesting, like almost like an Instagram moment if you're going to see the show, standing under it and getting a picture would probably be nice. I hear the concern about the seating adjacent, but I can't see it because again, even when you're sitting, your eye level is lower. So I can't see it that being like a big issue.
Similarly, I think, well, as a short person, I'm not worried about
Vertically challenged.
Since one day I'll have my growth spurt. I would worry that if the sign went higher, then it starts to look like I-77 and kind of but I trust staff to kind of go through all of those details and machinations. So I don't know if we need to be overly prescriptive about it here. So
I think we ought to approve if, as presented, if that is what.
Okay, all right.
I'll move to approve as presented with the understanding that Director Wong will sign off administratively on the forthcoming legislation.
I second.
Roll call, please, Michael.
Luther.
Yes.
Ray Scott.
Yes.
Doug.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Good luck, Mr. Einhaus.
Thank you, commission members and Director Wong. Appreciate the accommodation.
Okie dokie. All right, we're into the special presentation mode, public art. I believe, wait a minute, hold on. My list doesn't match.
Destination Cleveland.
Your Destination Cleveland?
It is, yeah.
Okay, docket number 2023-030, Destination Cleveland Mural, Slavic Village, seeking final approval, 6304 Fleet Avenue. Who might be here to present this?
Alex Harnot's here representing Destination Cleveland.
Okay, please proceed.
Thanks. So this is the first, you'll see two of them today, first two in a series of 6 murals that Destination Cleveland is proposing around the city. This first one is at 6304 Fleet Avenue. It's the building that houses Vic's Florist in the Slavic Village neighborhood. And go ahead. Some current context. You can see the building there. We're essentially working in the space that's painted already with that sort of brownish yellow color. Go ahead. So mural is approximately 24 feet wide by 30 high. It's a portion of the building that used to adjoin an adjoining building. Go ahead. We're partnering with Graffiti Heart to sort of manage the installation of these. So all the materials are, what they use on projects across the city. The wall will be buffed, it'll be primed, there'll be a direct application of paint, and then we'll do an anti-graffiti coating up to 10 feet vertical. Go ahead. So this is the design. It's by a local artist, Kelly Schwab. We've been through East Design Review. Council person is supportive. CDC is just supportive, and the building owner and the tenant are helped to choose the design from the ones that we evaluated through our process. And we think it'll be a great addition to the neighborhood.
Staff, there's no one here. Tara's not here.
Tara's on.
Is Tara here?
Yes, I'm here. I'm joining virtually. I am supportive of this mural at this location. I think it's appropriate for the site. I think it's also a great addition to the neighborhood. I did receive an email from Councilman Moore who said she was very supportive of this mural, and I would recommend approval.
Commission members?
Mr. Chair, I recommend approval for Destination Cleveland mural in Slavic Village.
There are some recommendations that came with that as well.
Yes, I did advise the Destination Cleveland team to work with the artists to make sure that the paint is not going beyond the raw brick onto the brick that changes towards the front facade of the building to avoid those areas, as those are architectural features. That was my recommendation to them.
So Ms. Scott, you want to
I will amend it with the recommendations that are stated.
Second. Roll call, please.
Fluker,
Yes?
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Black.
Yes. I can say that mural's stunning.
It is beautiful.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Are you presenting the rest of these?
I have 2 for you today, so I've got 1 more.
So is it the Detroit Shoreway mural?
Yes.
Okay, on 80004 Lorraine mural. Okay, go ahead, please.
Certainly. So second site is at 8004 Lorraine Avenue, which is directly opposite the exit ramp from I-90. You can go ahead to the context photos. There you go. Continue, please. So we'll be working on this westernmost panel of the building. If you want to go ahead. There we go. It's about 18 feet high, 26 wide. You know, we talked about, there's the design concept.
That's pretty.
Go ahead, please. And again, local artist Lisa Quine. The wall will be buff, the wall will be primed. It's a direct application of paint. The wall right now is painted CMU, and then we'll do the anti-graffiti coating here again, 10 or 12 feet, and that's how it renders out on that panel of the building.
Ms. Petras, any comments?
Yes, thank you. I would like to read a portion of an email of support from Councilwoman Spencer. She said, "This mosaic is absolutely stunning and I cannot be more thrilled. This art will do more to uplift residents and instill community pride than anything that has happened on that section of Lorraine Avenue in a very long time." She would like to convey her most sincere appreciation to Destination Cleveland, Chelsea from the neighborhood CDC, and all partners and collaborators who have been involved in the project. She also said that she would like to be a part of attending or creating a mural celebration or unveiling when the time comes. So that's from her email of support. I'm in support of it as well and hope that this does get approved. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I recommend approval for the mural at 8004 Lorraine Avenue.
Second. Roll call, please.
Maybe Mr. Chair and Commission, if you could provide just a quick reason for why you like it.
The reason is because the community is in support of it, is very vibrant, and we received a letter in support of it from the council member, Councilwoman Spencer, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
You concur?
I do.
Okie dokie. Roll call, please.
Fluker,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Black.
Yes.
Okay, the next mural located at 4621 Broadway. Are you here to present this one as well, Alex?
think it's Broadway.
No, this
No,
is
sir.
Eileen Dorsey's project. She's here.
Broadway.
It's actually.
It's Broadview.
Okay, I don't know, I'm just,
I think it's just a typo on the little sheet here.
Okay, it's Broadview.
It's in Old Brooklyn.
Okay.
okie dokie.
Eileen, you're on mute.
Mute me. Oh, thank you so much. I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself. I was just writing it in the chat. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Garrett Wider, who's the other artist on this project. Project history, we've done 3 murals in Old Brooklyn neighborhood, all floral murals. Project was supported through the community from an IOB grant last time, Neighborhood Up Grant, and the Old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation. Next slide. Here are the examples of the floral murals that we did in 2021. The concept came from the slogan of the neighborhood being a great place to grow. So we decided to use flowers to represent that, and also it's the home of the Benjamin Franklin Community Gardens, which is one of the oldest ones in the city. This is located on C's Beverage on 4621 Broadview. You can see it from 2 streets and it's near 2 businesses, and we hope that the mural will attract more business to this location. As you can see from the view, it has a lot of viewing space. Next slide, please. And this is the concept with the colors that we chose. And the next slide will show what it looks like on the building. Approximately 12 by 55 feet. Will be in color. Next slide. And here's examples, so you can see more examples of our work, so you have an idea of what things look like in color. And we have received tons of support from the community, cash donations from the IOB page. I've included a drawing that a little girl gave to us while we were working on one of the projects in 2021. She lived next door to the one on Gus's, and she drew a picture of the mural that we were painting. Yeah, we had tons of drivers honking and support. We even had a bus driver, an RTA bus driver, stop and like give us cash donation because she was in support of the project. So yeah, so everyone is overwhelmingly excited. And that's just saying that. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Petrus?
Yes, thank you. This is another mural in Councilwoman Rebecca Moore's neighborhood that she also is in support of. She did send me an email stating such. I agree with her in support of this mural as well. Thank you.
Commission members?
Mr. Chair, I would like to put forth. I'm sorry.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, guys.
I apologize.
That's okay. Hey, I'm just across the street. This is Councilwoman Moore's, but I'm like across the street in 2 different directions, and I love this as well. It's also worth noting that Eileen and Garrett are residents of Old Brooklyn, so this is truly a local project. Not 5 locals, 4 locals, and it's beautiful work. So I know I'm the other side of the street, but I love this as well.
Thank you. We appreciate
I'll just say, I'll allow it because Rebecca can't see it because she's like, he's across the street looking at it. It's like, it's actually, like, your perspective's important, Chris. Right?
All right, you have the view corridor.
Mr. Chair,
That's right.
Michael Bozak gently corrected me and said, no rationale necessarily needed for public art.
That's
They're
what I
used
thought.
just-
It's
yeah,
subjective.
descriptively.
Yeah.
But it's the site is the
Gotcha.
important aspect.
Gotcha.
We're not approving the art itself necessarily. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
So, Mr. Chair, I recommend that we approve this public art at 4621 Broadview.
Second. Roll call, please.
Hooker,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
White.
Yes. Okay, item number 4 under special presentations, CPL Woodland Branch rotating art wall seeking final approval located at 5906 Woodland Avenue. I believe Ms. Is it Guido? Is here to present. Please proceed, please.
You're low. And we are presenting a rotating art wall, like an art mural at the Woodland Public Library branch. Go to the next slide. We have Nancy Boylan here with Land Studio to answer additional questions. If you don't know, the library is embarking on an ambitious plan to called their facilities master plan to redo or renovate all of their branches. And so the Woodland branch is currently really close to being completely finished. They're working on the landscaping right now. So you can just see, this is a rendering of the new branch. You can go to the next slide. And so it was, you can see it was a little hard to get the site images via Google, but you can see the wall that we're proposing on the site. This particular branch also has the library distribution branch. So there's the actual library branch and then kind of a public space in the center. And then the wall that we're proposing is in the center of that, the little pink line. As part of the library's distribution branch, more of like a, not like a public accessible building, but right on site of the Woodland Library branch. Go to the next slide. Just a little more details. You can see the proposed tree plan. All the trees haven't gone in yet, but this is kind of in an opening space in that public space. Go to the next slide. Here's the wall that go to the next slide. And the scale of the artwork. It's you'll see details in a moment, but this is actually going to be an almost like a framing system, because it's going to be used for rotating artwork. We have a couple examples in this presentation, including Public Square and a couple other examples at the library. Here we have the Public Square Cafe art wall, where Land Studio curates and programs this space as a rotating space for emerging local artists. You can go to the next slide. And then these two next slides are examples of how the library has used that example at Public Square at their branches to bring some public art to the branches. So this is at the Cleveland Public Library, Harvard Lee, and then this one's at the South Brooklyn location. You can go to the next slide. Just a little details about the rotating mural tension system. It's a aluminum extrusion structure. It's almost like a picture frame where it's basically the vinyl is printed and then put in there really taut. And then that allows for a rotating mural. The library usually has it about a yearly basis. And they are really durable even in windy weather. And then when it's taken down, the vinyl is offered either to the artist, or we give it to one of the organizations in Cleveland that has been reusing vinyl, like Upcycle Part Shop and organizations like that. You go to the next slide. And then we also have the proposed first artwork for this space. This is a local artist. This is her first public artwork, Maria Uhas, and she's an oil painter, illustrator, living and working in Northeast Ohio. So, this was just her sketch process, which was really cool to see. So we just put a slide in there. We go to the next slide. Here's her final concept, and because of the long nature of the scale of the space, she decided to do an image that reflects the passage of time. And so she has some local Cleveland native plantings and then some invasive species there. She also she presented those sketch concepts to the branch manager and the director of the arts and culture of the library, and they really like this concept and really love this first concept to be at the branch. And she has more details about the microbiome of the plants, insects and animals if you want to go in deeper. Go to the next slide. There you can see it on the wall. Then you can go to the next slide. And so this is, this art wall, program is normally part of the See Also program that brings temporary public art to the Cleveland Public Library. Land plans to work with the Cleveland Public Library, about one mural change out per year. And we're just building on the success and, of the Public Art Square, Public Square art wall and the CPL other branch art walls, which they really have come to love. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Petras?
Thank you, Chair. This one came through for adding to the agenda while I was out on vacation, so I was not able to forward this one to Councilman Starr, whose ward is in. So I just wanted to say, make sure if you all haven't already, that you reach out to the councilman to make sure he supports it as well. Are the dimensions going to remain the same for each of the future iterations with other artists? The wide, okay, all right. I'm in support. I think this is a great thing that Land is doing with the libraries to create outdoor galleries in our neighborhoods, at our libraries for the public. So I'm in support of this. I think it's great. Thank you.
I just have one comment. If Land Studio can look into potentially painting that brick facade, it's like a real light, like a beige color, and I feel like getting like a little bit more matte and darker color could be just a better backdrop, especially for that first piece, but then also in the future, potentially even like a darker gray to match the new building, and just maybe just on that wall. I just think like things could get lost in that light beige tone.
Thank you. One more question. What was the reasoning behind the side? It looks like it's 5 feet tall, instead of making it go down the wall a little further.
I think Nancy might be able to chime in, but I think it was because it looks really bare right now, but it's because some bushes were planned for right there. So we didn't want it to go below the plantings. But Nancy can add if that's.
Do you know about how far up the wall the bottom is?
I think it's maybe like 5 or 6 feet, but Nancy, you might know that.
Okay.
You're muted though, Nancy.
Mr. Chair.
Nancy, you're still muted.
You would think I would know how to do this by now. It appears, I believe, to answer your question, Tara, the reason why it is a slender, it'll be a slender framing system is because of the plantings. Aaron was correct in stating that. When we met on site with Tiffany Graham, we discussed that. I believe it's approximately about 3 to 4 feet from the ground up to the bottom of the mural. But don't quote me on that one. I would have to look back at my notes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sargent, would you like to make a motion relative to?
A motion to approve the final concept for the art at the Woodland Library branch with the consideration that Land Studio look to paint the facade of that wall that the artist left.
Thank you.
A second.
Roll call, please. I'm still writing.
Booker.
Yes.
Ray Scott.
Yes.
Dartmouth.
Yes.
Slider.
Yes.
Thank you. Good luck. That's actually, I think it's gonna be really nice when it's done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Like the linear idea. The fifth item under special presentations, Facing History mural seeking final approval located at 2050 West 47th Street. I believe Ms. Gonzalez is here from Land Studio. There you go. Please proceed.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm presenting a mural concept for the Facing History building. You can go to the next slide. Essentially, Facing History wanted to have their most public-facing wall have a kind of thought-provoking mural design that was illustrative of their mission and their goals and some of the things that they do there. You can go to the next slide. So here are some of the project goals that we were trying to achieve with the mural design, which is piquing viewers' curiosity, creating a pictorial image that represents the mission, culture, and values of Facing History, creating a happy visual, something that is welcoming and inviting, and inspiring joy, hope, and the idea of creating a better world. You can go to the next slide. So this is the site location right on West 47th Street. If you go to the next slide, I have the aerial view there. So you can't see it. It's right off Lorraine, but you can't see it unless you make it left on West 47th and go all the way down. And if you go to the next slide, you can see here it is if you were driving in that direction, and that's where the mural would be located on that yellow public facing wall right there. Next slide. So I just put this here because they really wanted to have their tagline, people make choices, choices make history, incorporated into the mural design. And that happened. If you go to the next slide. So this is going to be done by artist Isaiah Williams. I'm sure that you all have seen his work before. He's done a lot of mural work all across Cleveland. So I put in a little excerpt from his bio for anyone who wasn't familiar with his work. Really community oriented, really great work, really talented artist. So you can go to the next slide. And here's the mural design, the final one. He wrote a really beautiful artist note about the design that I am actually gonna read on the next slide. Essentially, he wrote that he wanted to make a design that was, he chose vibrant spectrum of colors to symbolize diversity and unity, and that there are two abstract faces, one looking forward and the other one kind of looking inward or back, he says, in reflection of oneself and the beauty within. The lotus flower in the left face symbolizes purity and rebirth, and that there are complementing flowers in between the duality of past self and present self. And then he also just stated that he kind of put some abstract designs in the background, kind of to play with like different worlds and kind of thinking otherworldly. And a lot of his work is like that. So that is very on brand. If you go to the next slide. I included some precedents of what this has looked like on other buildings that look like this, because I know that there was some concern about it being a residential, it being, you know, essentially a house or a residence, and that there, you know, there's this vinyl siding that is almost like rippled. But it has worked successfully in the past. So I just included some other places where we've seen latex paint on murals on vinyl siding. And in the next slide, I included precedents of spray paint murals on vinyl siding as well, because he wants to do a mix of spray paint and latex paint for this mural. And I'm not sure kind of the ratio, but he's gonna use both. And on the next slide, we've included, and Aaron could probably speak to this a little bit better than I could, but we've included like kind of a maintenance plan regarding the type of paint that he used. We consulted with him about, you know, the longevity of the mural. So it should last, you know, 5+ years. Things to do beforehand to make sure that it stays up and that it's, you know, stays looking nice, including, you know, getting it, getting the siding cleaned and prepped before he puts the mural up. And then some kind of options for moving forward if it is to say, start to kind of need some maintenance or some touch up. And I don't know, Erin, if you wanted to speak to any more details about that.
I think you covered it. We just got a lot of questions on could you paint vinyl? And so we talked with, Isaiah talked with his paint guy and talked through what kind of latex paint would be best, what kind of spray paint would be best. While this, just want to highlight that while this looks like a residential house, it's on the end of a residential street, but it faces a parking lot and Metro Health because it's part of the urban community campus. So it's actually built as a business, like headquarters for Facing History. So you just want to know it's not, the wall that we're looking at is really the main entrance for parents dropping off students. It's not like facing another residential house. And that's another reason why Oran just like be welcoming, inviting, happy in some ways, really colorful, was important to Facing History to like do all the families.
Thank you. Ms. Petrus?
Thank you. I did I did express my concern with the vinyl siding and how the artwork may work on that substrate, but I do want to point out that we did approve a similar mural on a vinyl siding substrate on East 185th a couple of years ago by another local artist, Linda Zoltan Wood, that turned out very nice, and the artwork did translate well, even with the texture of the substrate. So with that said, and Isaiah's research, I'm not concerned anymore as I was initially, but I am supportive, and I'm glad to see that all 5 of the public art presentations today are all local artists, and that's very exciting to me. And I do support this mural facing the Urban Community School campus. Thank you.
Thank you. In my previous life as an architect, I find Sherwin-Williams to be a stellar resource. You can paint anything, believe me. And so they will tell you how to prep, what to use, what primer to use, whatever. So we do have a extremely invaluable resource. You can go to any one of the stores. Thank you.
Agreed.
Commission members?
A motion to approve the mural at 2050 West 47th Street.
Second. Roll call, please.
Fluker,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
But
Yes.
Thank you. Good luck on all the murals.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
For the record, I love full facade murals, and I wish we had more of that. Thank you.
But what I'm finding too, the richness of, just the content and colors they're improving as we go along. Obviously, I've been to other cities and I says, I know we can do this here, right? So.
And, just my past life at Midtown with Building Walls, that was a huge capacity building opportunity to really see more and more artists do murals, not just studio work. So I think we are really growing our mural capacity. It's really exciting. Also, shout out to Isaiah Williams, Star Meeting. Found him on Instagram. So, I'll move quickly through directors report because I know we're short on time. Just some upcoming community engagement opportunities for Base Code, as noted last time. We have 2 coming up, one in the Cudell neighborhood, September 20th from 5:30 to 8:30. I'm happy to send these flyers around to you by email. And then one in Huff, September 26th from 5 to 7. We'll have staff present, we'll have questions, we'll try to make it as interactive as possible, but it's meant to be educational as well as discuss any final issues with the maps that were created over the past 4 years. Next slide, please. Next meeting is 3 weeks away, so again, we meet the 1st and 3rd. We have a 5-week month, so the next meeting is Friday, October 6th, 2023. One final note is that these, we would love to keep these here so that we can keep them as references for you. And I also intend to make a binder of all of the ordinances that are relevant to our purview so that you can use that as reference. And just for those who are listening, this is the demolition ordinance that is codified ordinances. That's it from me.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you. Have a nice weekend.